Adam Guthrie here from I Feel Good magazine, and I am super stoked tonight because I have an amazing guy called Harry Bolman to share with you his journey of veganism, because Harry has been vegan for almost 40 years. And I met Harry quite a few years ago. But what's amazing about Harry, not only has he been vegan, he's one of the longest vegans that I know that's been vegan, but also Harry has this amazing community called Vegan Life on the Gold Coast. It's a Meetup group, and it's very strong, and it's helped a lot of people become vegan and help people create a community around veganism. But also Harry has this really cool show every single week called The Vegan Hour, where he interviews people for an hour live, and I was on the show a couple of months ago, and it was a really good night. We had a lot of fun. So Harry, welcome. Thank you for being here and sharing your knowledge on a vegan lifestyle to the I Feel Good community through the magazine. How are you, mate?
Thank you. Oh, I'm very well, Adam. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Cheers. Look, I thought it'd be really nice to, let's first of all have a look at where you are. Where's this 40 years of veganism taking you to this moment now? And what's in your life, what's around you? And then let's look at, okay, the journey. Why did you start and end up where you are here? So tell us all about vegan life, mate.
Well, let's start with Vegan Life. In the background, you might actually be able to see the Vegan Life sign, so a part of the promo material. Vegan Life is what we call a meetup group, which has got nearly 1,000 members. It's Gold Coast based, but it actually has members from northern New South Wales right through to Brisbane. And twice a month, we hold a meetup where we either go to a fully vegan restaurant or we go to a park and we do a thing called a vegan luck in the park. So the idea, this is actually the 5th year, or well, let's say the 4th year it's been running. I started it at the end of 2014. So the idea behind it at the time was to give people an opportunity to, like-minded people, vegans, to get together with their friends and meet new vegan friends. It was sort of like almost like a dating thing without the dating, you know. And so at the time in 2014, the end of 2014, there wasn't much in the way of, say, vegan festivals or markets or anything like that happening. So it really was an opportunity for people to get together, and there's been a lot of good friendships formed. There's been a lot of good food eaten, and we've been able to support the local restaurant scene because we just go to fully vegan restaurants. That's part of the philosophy of Vegan Life, is to support fully vegan restaurants. And then we also have this wonderful thing where we go to a park, we pick a different park each month, and people bring along wonderful vegan food that they've created. And I really get touched by the amount of effort that people put in. Some of the food they bring along, I'm just like, this is amazing, So that I'm super enthusiastic about that. I've met some fantastic people, and we've got, as I was saying, we've got close to now, after 4 years, we've got close to 1,000 members in Vegan Life. So that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool in 4 years. So why did you start the Vegan Life? I mean, what inspired you to actually make it happen?
What actually, it was predated, or Vegan Life, the group Vegan Life was actually predated by another group called Vegan Sun. And Vegan Sun was not actually my group, but I had the honour of running it. It was a Brisbane-based meetup group, and I had the honour of running it here on the Gold Coast for the creator of it. And I did that for, I think, a year or two. And then things changed, and the creator behind it decided he didn't want to actually keep the group running. He basically wanted to head off in other directions. So there was a sort of a hole in the market there, I guess. So it was like from the demise of Vegan Sun came the birth of Vegan Life. And so I already had the foundation with Vegan Sun. I just had to slide into Vegan Life. So I can't take credit for sort of starting the whole idea. But what I did was I then created Vegan Life as my my vehicle, and then imprinted the way I wanted to do things onto it. And so I took some of the ideas from Vegan Sun, and then I changed them. I thought, okay, it's my group. When we're just going to go to fully vegan restaurants, whereas Vegan Sun used to go to, say, sometimes vegetarian places with vegan options and that. So I just changed it around to the way I wanted to, the way I wanted to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, what a great place to do it. You're on like the mecca of veganism in Australia on the Gold Coast. There's so many many vegan restaurants there now.
Yes, they just keep popping up. I think we're a bit over the 20 mark, around about 20 off the top of my head. I have a list on my Facebook page of the fully vegan restaurants, and I break it up into the Gold Coast, Northern New South Wales, Brisbane, and Sunshine Coast. And here's the thing that I love that's exciting. Brisbane is now up to 25 fully vegan restaurants. So they've been popping them up. Like Brisbane used to lag. Go back a couple of years ago when Brisbane was a little bit quiet on the fully vegan scene. They have just gone, nah, we're going to overtake you, Gold Coast, and they've just shot ahead. And I'm just like, well, I don't mind where they are as long as I can go and support a fully vegan place.
Yeah, totally. And it's so good to be able to have such a variety of places to eat. We're pretty lucky living up this part of the world.
Yeah.
So what was the very first vegan restaurant on the Gold Coast, do you know?
Yes, well, it's an interesting story because I went vegan in 1980, and when I first went vegan, there wasn't any vegan places that I was aware of. But in the 1980s, a place opened on the highway at Burleigh, and it became known later on as the Magic Apple. But originally, if my memory serves me correctly, it was originally, I think, Garden of Eden, I think was its name.
I remember that.
Yes, you remember it? Yes. That's way back in the 80s. Yeah. I did quite like the place, though by comparison with what we have today, it really, the food was really quite, limited in its scope. But at the time, that's all I knew, and there was a lot of things I loved about it. It was a beautiful, clean, open, airy space, nice white walls, and it had a nice feel to it. And so, yeah, I would go there on a fairly regular basis and just it was a vegetarian place with vegan options, so I'd just get vegan stuff. And over the years, it kept hanging in there, and it kept selling its nut meat saucy, which was the thing I used to always get from there. But on the scene came a lot of other fully vegan places that just lifted the bar, and it sort of fell by the wayside, and it actually it closed as a vegetarian place, I think, about 2 years ago now, I think. So wow. And other than that, if we want to go right back to these dim dark ages of the 1980s, there was actually a vegetarian place way up the northern end of the Gold Coast in Labrador that I never went to, but it was called Squirrels, and Squirrels was a famous chain of vegetarian restaurants started by a lady, Diana Mitchell, who's a friend of mine now, and she had a couple of them, I think, in Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane and the Gold Coast. So yes. I knew of Squirrels, but I never went there. So these are the very pioneering days of eating out vegetarian/vegan style.
Wow. So they were vegetarian with vegan options, but what was the very first vegan? 100%.
On the very first fully vegan place on the Gold Coast was just over 10 years ago, and it was actually two that opened around the same time. There was Mandela's at Mermaid Beach, and Mandela's opened originally. It was called Three Worlds. I think it was just called Three Worlds Pizza Shop or something like that. A very low-key affair. It was at the back of the Three Worlds drum shop. It was very much a, haphazard sort of arrangement. I think first time I walked in there, I looked around and thought, wow, okay, is it safe to eat here? It was a bit like, it was a little bit scary. But it morphed into Mandela's Pizza with the best pizzas I've ever had anywhere. I mean, just awesome. Amazing spelt-based pizzas with the most amazing cashew cream on them. Just fantastic. Sadly, it closed up shop last year, by the middle of, I think, last year, 2018. But around the same time that it started, so a bit over 10 years ago was when it first got off the ground. Around the same time, also in Mermaid Beach, was Tian Ran, which is an Asian-style restaurant. Now, Tian Ran, I think, might even be 11 or 12 years old now, I think. So those were the first two to start on the Gold Coast. And Tian Ran is still going. Tian Ran is excellent food, fantastic value. It's not pretentious. It doesn't pretend to be anything more than it is. But I was there, I think, maybe Friday or Saturday night last weekend, and it was packed. Yeah. It was packed. And I love it. I love going into a fully vegan place and it's packed. Yeah. And I think this is fantastic. All these people are choosing compassion over cruelty. And I just love it. I sit there and I think about it, and it's just, and, Mandela's, Mandela's used to be the spot to be before any other vegan places opened, when there was just Tian Ran and Mandela's. Mandela's was, you would go in there on a Friday night, it was like going into a nightclub. There was all young people dressed up fantastic, like before they're going out for a night on the town, and it would be packed. And they had a bar there, so there'd be, people drinking, and there was a big outside eating area. You've been to Mandela's?
Yeah. I didn't realise that it shut because the pieces were great.
Yes, the pizzas are amazing. But I love the fact that it was so well supported. And I remember saying on a few different occasions to people, saying, isn't it incredible? And this is maybe 5-8 years ago, I'd say to people, isn't it incredible that we have a fully vegan place with so many people supporting it? That was the scene. But Adam, so much has changed since then. So much. The scene has changed so much. It's, like these things, it's always evolving.
Totally, and it's fantastic. So what's the new kid on the block? What's the newest?
The newest kid on the block actually opened about the week before Christmas, which is called BKA Vegan. BKA Vegan is in Burleigh Heads, and it's very much in the style of one of my very favourite fully vegan places, which is Greenhouse Canteen. It's very similar to Greenhouse Canteen in the way that it's sort of styled, and the presentation, just the effort behind it. You can tell, you walk into a place and you can tell that people know what they're doing. My friend Kylie runs that, and they've hit the ground running really well. They've got people are supporting it. It's fantastic food. It's a nice space. And my Vegan Life group, coincidentally, actually has a meetup there this Saturday. We're having a lunch there this Saturday, though I don't know if this video, by the time this video has been screened, it might be after the event.
Yeah, it'll be after. But so it's awesome. There's so much to choose from.
Well, see, now the interesting thing is BKA Vegan opened the week before Christmas, and about a month before that, we also had another fully vegan place open in Palm Beach called Goodness Gracias. And Goodness Gracias, again, that's my friend Chrissy Carvello, known as a vegan fitness model. What I love what she did, she took an existing Mexican cafe and turned it fully vegan. So she just made sure that, she dropped all the death and the cruelty, and I tell you what, wow, it's pretty damn good. It's great value. The food is fantastic. People have been, so many of my friends just going there like on an almost daily basis.
I went last week. I went last Thursday or Friday. Thursday night it might have been. I popped in there and had a Mexican burrito wrap.
Yes.
One. Oh man, it was so good.
They are so good, aren't they? Yeah. I'm glad you went, because it's, now you know how good it is.
Absolutely know how good it is, And, Chrissy's and Alex, her husband, they're doing a great job there.
Oh, they are. They're wonderful people. They've always got a smile. They've got that enthusiasm and energy that's going to attract you back, apart from the fact that you've got the food, which is fantastic, good value. It's a funky little shop. It's clean. It's, it's a good position there. What's not to like? The brownies. Did you try a brownie?
I've had the brownies. What's really funny, I was laughing with Chrissy about it, because when we had Painana down in Avalon, a couple of years ago, we set that up, the vegan place. Yeah. We actually got those same brownies.
I think
we were selling the same brownies, and they're so addictive. And I actually left the shop, and I went, I got to have one of them brownies. And I went back in. I said, Chris, I got to have one.
I know. I don't know what they're putting in them, but it works.
I tell you, it's not the healthy stuff. It's just all sugar.
No.
And, but it's
it's good stuff.
That's a big thing, you know? But yeah, so that's really cool. So it's so good you got so much choice now.
Yeah.
What was it like 39 years ago in 1998 when...
In 1980.
Sorry, in 1980.
1980, yeah.
When you became vegan. And why did you become vegan back then? That's what
it's such a contrast to who I am and how I am now, because, I mean, I was a 16-year-old, pimply-faced, spoiled brat. I'm still a spoiled brat, but
now you've got stubble, man.
Yeah, I don't look 16 anymore. But to answer part of that question, the reason I went vegan was because I had really was struggling with bad acne as a teenager, and I tried different things, and I'd struggled with it for a couple of years, and I've been to the doctor. The doctor had said, I mean, it was bad enough that I'd been to the doctor for it, so that gives you an idea. It was pretty bad. It was facial and bodily acne. I didn't know much about diet or anything. I didn't know much about health at that stage. Doctor said
something there.
Yeah.
What linked you to thinking vegan to getting rid of acne?
Well, that's what I'm leading up to, because the step before making that connection was that the doctor said, it has nothing. Your acne has nothing to do with diet, and for a while I believed that. But fortuitously, somewhere in my journey, somebody handed me a book which became my Bible, and it's a book written in the 1920s by a German professor, Arnold Ehret, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with, the mucusless diet. And I read that book, and I mean, I read it in one sitting. I think I read it on a Friday night. I read it. It blew me away, because it was actually what he was doing. He was treating people with chronic diseases by putting them on a raw vegan diet. It wasn't known as vegan when he wrote the book, because the word vegan hadn't been coined. It was coined in the 1940s by Donald Watson, if I've got his name correct. But Professor Arnold Ehret didn't call it a vegan diet. It was just a mucusless diet. It was very strict. It was extremely strict. You didn't eat breakfast. You just ate your raw foods, mono meals, or maybe 2 or 3 ingredients together. That was it. And you did a lot of fasting and so forth. Anyway, I read this book, and for me, it just suddenly connected everything. He explained things in a way that I understood that the fuel I was putting into my body was causing issues. So I was so inspired. I read the book on a Friday night. I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. So I started that weekend. By the end of that weekend, my acne was clearing dramatically. There was only 2 days into it. It was clearing dramatically. By the end of the following week, all the acne was gone. And basically it was like, this is my life now. There's no turning back. I'm living proof of the amazing effect it has when you eat the right way. It just so you could imagine, as a 16-year-old, I was like tripping. I was blown away.
Your confidence would have gone through the roof.
Oh yeah. That was the start of a whole. See, Professor Arnold Ehret wasn't just about diet. He was about getting sunshine. He was about connecting with the earth. He was about the whole spiritual aspect of it as well. So that was the opening up. That was Harry Bowman's opening up. And suddenly it was like, wow, I'm just seeing the world differently. I started doing affirmations and invocations, and it snowballed from there. So as a 16-year-old, all my acne disappeared, and I was on a raw vegan diet, and I was so slim, it was ridiculous. I'm only a small framed guy at the best of times, but I ended up I had a photo somewhere along the line of me when I'm about 18 and 19, and I'm actually too thin. It was ridiculous. I really should have been eating some brownies, I think, but as opposed to 39 years later, where I really should stop eating some brownies. That's the biggest problem we've got now. There's too many brownies. They're everywhere.
Everywhere, cakes and brownies and vegan desserts.
So in those early days, I had no idea that I'd become vegan. I just was following the mucusless diet. I called myself an Eritarian after his surname, Erit. So,
Okay.
and that's when people would sort of ask what I was or whatever. That's why I say I'm an Eritarian.
Yeah.
It wasn't until some time later that I knew that I'd become a vegan and used that label.
Wow. So when did you discover the vegan word?
Well, actually, I can't put a date or a time frame on that. I actually can't remember when that happened. Somewhere in my journey, somewhere in the 1980s, somewhere along there, it suddenly dawned on me. But, in hindsight, looking back, it all makes sense in any case because I was brought up to love and appreciate animals because my dad is a very much my dad, by the way, I should qualify this. He's now vegetarian, almost fully vegan now, but in those days he was a meat eater. But he had still, like a lot of people, a lot of appreciation for animals, and he actually showed me how to talk to them, how to sort of communicate with them and just bond with them and that. So because of that, I had that affinity where I felt a closeness to animals that I noticed that a lot of my schoolmates didn't seem to have. It was like I was alien to them, and looking back, it's really pronounced difference between the way I felt about living beings and the way they felt about them. They'd go out fishing or things like that, and I could not understand how anyone did that. Couldn't relate to that. It just didn't make sense,
Yeah,
So
I mean, being 16 to 21 in
yeah.
that age bracket when, everyone's partying, eating meat, fishing or whatever, that would have been a pretty interesting time for you because there wouldn't have been many other people being vegan. Did you drink at that time?
It's a very good it was a very interesting time, and I love that you brought that up. I drank on only 3 occasions when I was 17/18, around that age. I tried to fit in with, because that is the time where you're experimenting, learning more about yourself. You're trying to fit in with your friends. I didn't know anyone else that was like me. I mean, I really was an individual doing my own thing. There was no one else eating the way that I knew. But on 3 different occasions, I tried alcohol, and all 3 occasions I was sick, and I was only able to consume a very small, like less than a can of alcohol before I would throw up, and I'd just be throwing up. My body was just saying, no way, you cannot tolerate alcohol, Very, very fortunate, I had other mates that were experimenting, that going off, like starting to smoke cigarettes and stuff like that, which to me was like, why would you do that to yourself? That was just like, are you insane? So that was never, cigarettes, drugs, none of that was of interest to me, but I did try the alcohol 3 times, and fortunately I have a body that couldn't tolerate it. So, my life has been relatively very healthy because of never having done drugs or cigarettes or any large amount of alcohol or anything like that. So the other side of that, it means that I tend to be a bit of a loner, an individual. I tend to do my own thing, which is good because to follow the journey that I've done, I had to be like that to do it. But the other side of that meant it was also often a very lonely journey, very much like I felt like I was the only vegan in the village, as I like to joke about it now. But at the time, I can look back with appreciation now, but at the time, it was a lot of very difficult periods of time, just I would never think about falling off the wagon, like changing, going back to eating animal products. But it was definitely a strong sense of isolation, and lack of support and lack of understanding from other people my age, from peer group, and also sadly from family members.
How are your parents about it?
Well, I literally put up with decades of ridicule. Decades. I mean, really.
I became vegetarian when I was 21, and it was pretty tough going for a long time.
It is, isn't it? You see, you know what I mean. It is tough. You have to have an inner conviction of knowing what you're doing is right. You have to know it. When you're the only person there, when you're standing, I mean, when basically, I would, in those early days, in the 80s especially, I would go down the beach a lot. I would go down and I'd swim and I'd sunbake, and that was my happy space, but that was it. It was just me. I didn't have any friends that I'd go down with or anything. It was just me. It was me as a loner, just doing my thing. And I didn't connect so much with other people. I connected more with the universe. I went down and I connected with nature, and I'd go down the beach and I would read and I would meditate, and I would just feel like some days I'd actually feel like I was really reaching quite a higher sort of spiritual level. I went through some amazing time in the 80s and the 90s with some amazing sort of inner connections, I guess, you know. So
wow. That's amazing.
I actually, looking back, I feel exceptionally fortunate that I didn't get caught up in the world to the degree that so many other people that were people that I went through school with got caught up in the world. You know, I was fortunate, I think.
Why?
The universe said, you know, we're sort of going to save you for something better rather than, you know, getting you bogged down in the day-to-day mundane life, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you talk about, you know, those sort of spiritual experiences that you were experiencing. You know, people, you know, go after drugs to try and get those experiences. But if you eat this way and you meditate and you stay away from drugs and alcohol, your consciousness and vibration rises and expands.
Yes.
And you can be in and experience oneness.
Yes, definitely. You have said it so much better than I could. Thank you, Adam. That's beautiful. Now, see, you've experienced it. You know what we're talking about. You know, this is the thing. That's what I would experience. I was so fortunate to experience that from age 16 onwards. Although even before I went vegan, I was even as a young kid, I was someone who needed to know why things were the way they were. I needed to know why things happen in the world the way they do, why we experience so much pain and suffering. You know, what is the meaning of life? I had deep questions from the youngest age, but I also had deep disappointment because most of the people around me seemed to didn't have the answers, basically. You know, so, and I would ask teachers, I would ask adults, and, you know, I would usually get brushed off, or, you know, and that, you know, so again, that's more a case for me with that happening. It was a case of having to go within and still myself and get the answers from within, because I wasn't getting them on the outside world much, you know.
Did that send you on a journey of search, like seeking?
Yeah, definitely.
Come across?
Definitely has been a journey. In the 80s, I was very much into the New Age, very much the New Age movement, and a number of the people that I followed have actually passed away now, but there was a local guy, Barry Long, actually. I remember his name. Didn't even think I remember his. I followed him religiously for a few years. He had cassettes out I used to listen to all the time, and books and that I used to read. And there was a guy overseas, a controversial figure overseas, John Roger, who I think passed away as well. But these were sort of, some of these guys were, I found them quite really interesting, you know. Yeah. And also, I've forgotten it. Arnold Ehret, how I forgot, from the Mucusless Diet. I also was very much, his philosophy was really great, because he didn't just write the Mucusless Diet. He wrote a book called Rational Fasting and some other works. And he also, it really woke me up to getting out in nature and connecting with nature and just taking in the universe. And I tell you, I've still got memories of, well, this would be in the mid-1980s, of going out on the street at night where I live out here. I live in acreage. It's beautiful and quiet. I've been out here for over 30 years. As you know, at night you go out and you see all the stars, and it's fantastic. In the 80s, I would walk the streets alone at night and just feel like I was connecting, like the sky was coming down. And I was doing this without drugs, you know, and just feel like it was connected. And I couldn't even put into words the experience that I was having, just that it was like, my God, it's just, you know. And there's another funny little story there, actually, just came to mind. My brother, I would annoy the hell out of him, because in winter, during winter, when we have the most amazing winter blue skies, I would go out, and when we were all living together in the same place, I would say, "Have you seen the sky today?" And he'd go, "Will you shut up about that sky?" You know, he said, "You're always going on about the sky." I said, "Well, have a look at it. It is amazing." You know? He didn't want to know about it. He wanted to sleep all day, and I was just connecting with it. It was like, this is profound. So that's, you know,
what a great
I love
experience.
being able to do that.
Yeah. Man, that's it's amazing experience to start the journey with. And like bringing it back to today, that you've got the vegan life community, how different it was. You were on your own, and now you've got this massive community around you.
It's
people everywhere, but they're all the same vibe.
It relatively speaking, it's heaven now compared to how it was. It really, it astounds me that I can go, well, that any of us, not just me, but any of us now can go into any major supermarket and have a huge range of plant-based milks. We can go into the meat section and get meat alternatives. I mean, they sell plant-based meat alternatives in the meat section now. I'm like, I don't go into the meat section because I don't want to go there. But the fact that they're doing that just amazes me. The changes now, you know, compared to then when, you know, there was back in the 80s, mid 80s, I was working at Mermaid Beach on the coast here, and there was one little health food store that had some soy milks that I knew of that I used to go to at lunchtime and get some soy milks and some salad or something. Okay, they used to make some things up and that, but you know, there was nothing around, and you couldn't go to the supermarket and get stuff. You know, they had one soy cheese. I think you might even remember. I think it was Kingland or something, and it was like, it was inedible. I used to use it as a doorstop. I mean, you couldn't. Yeah, it was just ridiculously bad. If you were in extreme starvation, you might actually open it up and eat it. But you'd go to the shops, buy it, and just bring it home, and use it as a bookend or something. You couldn't actually eat this stuff. Whereas nowadays, everything is just,
you've got cashew cheeses, you've got nut cheeses, you've got like,
it's just, there's no excuse nowadays to not be compassionate.
Exactly. And so, Harry, why do you think consciousness is changing? Why do you think that people are more wanting to become vegan? What do you think's going on? Because you come from a spiritual perspective. What do you reckon's going on?
The biggest thing, and I have to give a lot of credit to it, has been social media. It has been the catalyst for massive change, because it's broken through the paradigm of mainstream media, and it's broken, and it's just allowed people, like we're doing now. I mean, we're using a form of social media, but it's allowed people.
It'll end up on social media.
It'll end up on social media, that's right. It has allowed people to see what was unseen before. So the hidden has been brought to the surface. So the atrocities, the way that animals are treated, the health implications of that as well, the environmental implications, all the things that vested interest doesn't want you to know through mainstream media because it's going to affect their income and that. Well, that doesn't matter on social media. It's not affecting them. It can be broadcast out there. I've been on social media a relatively short time, only 2013 that I came on Facebook. So I love to call it Facebook, but so it's less than 6 years. But the awareness in that time, and the way that everyone has stepped up from sharing videos of the atrocities that are happening to the animals, to documentaries, to activism events, to live streaming all of these things happening, you know, to going in and doing vigils and rescues, and just none of this could have happened without social media. None of it.
Yeah. And you can see, you know, you explained it there quite clearly. It's because those industries, the meat, dairy, and all the industries, didn't want us to see how they operated, and they could keep it hidden because, you know, information was controlled in a way that through the media. However, those companies wanted to control it.
That's right. And
so you can see how the internet and social media has made that shift, because now information is like everyone's got a phone in their hand. Actually, it probably came back to this. A phone where everyone can take videos.
That's right. And you know, what I love about social media is that it's a tool like money. So we have the ability to use it as for good or for selfless reasons or selfish reasons, you know. And I mean, the social media like Facebook started, I think, for selfish reasons. It started as a, you know, look at me sort of thing, right? And there's certainly a huge, you know, probably a majority of people still use it for that reason. But I love seeing the people use it as a tool to promote change, to promote the biggest social justice movement of all time. That is so empowering, and people coming up with new ways of doing it, you know, looking for ways of getting the message out there, you know, and you think, that's creative what you've done in that video. That's creative what you've done in that post. That's in that meme, in that live stream. That is fantastic. You're trying a new approach to get, you know, the information out there. So as a tool like money, you know, we can use it in a really, really powerful way to be, as James Aspey would say, to be a voice for the voiceless.
Yeah, and he's a great guy.
I've had the pleasure of interviewing him 3 times, and the first time was at my house, and he came to my house, and I felt like the king of the world. I'm like, I got James Aspey in my house.
Wow, I actually, here's my claim to Aspey. I actually did the very first interview with him at Mullumbimby Markets. If you go onto his YouTube site, you'll find it there. And he and I are just standing there at the markets because, you know, we were up here for a little bit and he was here, and Lauren, Lola was here, Lauren Camilleri, and also from Kind Cafe in Bali,
right,
and Tanya Camilleri, who's got In the Soul Shine. And also her other sister Amy. They're all here and we're all hanging out, and they were in love with Aspey, you know. And
everybody is.
Aspey got them to go vegan, and anyway, we were out at Mullumbimby Markets, and we were actually shooting some footage for me, and then Aspey's just standing there. I said, mate, how about we just have a chat and just on the camera, and let's get your story out there and start to chat about it. And so we did, and it was awesome. So
was this after he'd done his 365 days of silence?
Yeah, after. Yeah. So we talked about that, and
great.
He hadn't done any YouTube video at that stage. I think he'd just been on TV.
Right, yeah. I like how you say he'd just been on TV.
When I say that, like a few weeks ago, he just finished the thing.
he'd only been on TV. You know?
Yeah.
That's a good way. It was good though. He got on breakfast television. He was like, that shot him into the stratosphere by doing that.
Totally, and it gave him, you know, it's something deep in him. He's been given a gift to be able to speak and communicate in a way many people don't have. And he has been able to share the message of compassion and love and bring so many people into a space where there's less cruelty in the world by not eating animals. He's amazing, especially with a guy like him. Tats, big guy.
Yeah. Well, he's got the advantage that women love him, and so he's got, you know, a lot. The majority of compassionate souls that are awake are women. So he's got a very captive audience there, and he's part of 3 of what I call the 3 really strong influences. There's James, there's Earthling Ed, and there's Joey Carbstrong. I've interviewed 2 of them. I haven't spoken to Earthling Ed, but the 3 of them, they have their different styles, but they have amazing ability to handle just about any situation thrown at them from what I've seen, and handle it in a diplomatic way that is going to, you know, work and keep people interested in hearing the message. And
keep peace.
This is it, yeah. And that's very smart, very wise to do that.
Yeah, well, you think about it, you know, I eat this way out of compassion. Yeah, even though I had a heart attack, and when I was vegetarian, 39, 110 kilos, big fat guy, had a heart attack. Most of you know my story. And then I became whole food plant-based vegan. But I became vegetarian originally when I was 21 out of compassion. I didn't want to create any more suffering in the world. Yeah, I didn't know about the dairy and I didn't know about the egg industries at that time, you know, and that becomes clearer to you and become vegan. But, and when you look at that compassion lifestyle, it's really, it's about peace and love and kindness. So I think the more we eat this way, and I think, you know, most vegans are like that, and if there's any aggressive vegans out there, we need to get a bit more veggies. It's about peace, man. It's about peace.
It is. Yeah, I love that you brought that up because it's interesting. Because one of the observations in my vegan journey is seeing how, you know, you said aggressive vegans. Then what I've noticed is maybe an unintentional attitude that. But it's an understandable attitude that some vegans get, where they're extremely frustrated that things aren't changing quick enough. They're extremely emotional about what's happening with the animals, which is completely understandable. And they want people to wake up, and they want everyone to wake up now, you know, not tomorrow. We want now. And so this does translate through to some very aggressive energy sometimes and aggressive actions sometimes. And with some of the things that I know about psychology, I mean, I haven't studied it formally, but it's one of those areas that fascinates me. And I've observed quite a number of times now the mistake in making people that are what I call pre-vegans, in sort of making them the enemy by going up against them and, you know, and putting them offside rather than realizing that we were all once the same and bringing them in as a friend sort of thing, you know, and doing it. And that's what, you know, somebody like James and that does really well. They're on side with them, you know.
Yeah. How would you chat to somebody about becoming vegan?
It always depends on the person and the circumstance, because there are different things. I've done a couple of Cube of Truth demonstrations, which if people aren't familiar with, is where we stand and hold the screens, which is showing Australian footage of what happens in slaughterhouses, in what happens to chickens, what happens to the pigs, what happens to the cows and dairy farms and so forth, what is considered acceptable industry practice in Australia. And we show these on TV screens in public, and people walking past stop and look, and they're curious to find out what we're showing. And what I've noticed by talking to people from doing that, and also by observing other activists talking to people, is that there's going to be different areas that appeals to different people. You know, some people are definitely very sensitive about the environmental aspect of animal agriculture. Most people are very sensitive about the way animals are treated. That's a common thing. People are against animal cruelty. So getting them to become aware of the fact that they are contributing to it in a way that doesn't put them offside is really, really important. So it's in creating awareness. When they've done statistics on creating awareness and what's the most effective, they found the two most effective things in getting people to become vegan or to start thinking about it is documentaries and family members. Those are the two way at the top of the scale, way above anything else. And the reason it is because it's a non-confrontational information coming into the person. The person can then make the decision themselves. Instead of being told what you're doing is wrong, you've got to stop doing it now. The natural psychological response is, don't tell me what I'm doing is wrong. You know, people don't say it, but that's the thinking process. Yeah. I've been doing this all my life. I don't want to be told anything I'm doing is wrong. Screw you. You know, I'm going to keep doing what I do, right? So, but the difference is, if you approach people with, are you aware that this is how animals are being treated? Do you, you're an animal lover. I can tell you're an animal lover. Well, yes, of course we are. Okay, are you aware that this is how they're being treated? And they're like, no, I had no idea. And then the next step is saying, did you know you have the power today to do something about it? You can actually do something about it right now, and it's so easy to do something about it. And you have the power to do it, and you can save hundreds of lives a year just by you making a simple change in what you're eating for your next meal. And, and just by doing that, you're going to save hundreds of lives a year. And then you can be a positive influence to those around you and so forth. So there's a gentle approach that works with people, but it has to be tailored to the person. Some people are going to like the environmental aspect. Some people are going to like the health aspect. I relate to the health aspect because I went vegan originally for health reasons. So I relate to that. And some people will come along and I'll say, oh, look, man, do you realize, I was talking to a guy at work today. He's got issues with high blood pressure and cholesterol and all that. So, I said, mate, you do realize cholesterol, animal products. I said, but I was telling him in a way that was, and he was aware of it. This is a thing. It's not like people aren't aware of it. That's the other thing. It's like most people say, oh yeah, we knew about that, but so why haven't they done why haven't they done the final step? They're aware of it, but they haven't taken the final step. That's something I thought about for a long time. And then the only consistent conclusion I can come to is why it's so hard for people to be aware of the cruelty, to be aware of the environmental aspects, to be aware of the health implications, but still be contributing to it, is the fact that, and I'm very blunt about this, is the fact that most people are addicted to what they're eating. It's a sense gratification addiction. It's the same thing. When I drew the comparisons to a smoker that says, yes, I know it's no good for me, but you've got to die of something. Everything kills you. Everything gives you cancer. All that sort of thing. It's like, okay, I know you're coming up with the excuses and the justifications, but the reality is you're addicted. You can't stop. That's the sad reality. Yeah. And it's scientifically proven. Casomorphines.
Yeah,
casomorphines
in the cheese, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's
super addictive. It's very hard to give up cheese, and it's true. Yeah. It's addictive. People are addicted, and they're also what I've discovered is that they've just got a lifetime of habit.
Yes,
and family culture behind it as well.
That's true. You know what changes habit real quick?
Yeah. Tell me.
Lying on your deathbed.
I know. Look at that happened to me, man. I had a heart attack.
Exactly.
And it made me shift, got rid of the eggs and dairy overnight. Well, I didn't have eggs, but I got rid of the dairy overnight.
You're living proof of it. That's the difference. Habit is a very, and culture, habit and culture, and that is a very weak excuse when we're faced with our own mortality.
You know what's exciting, though, and positive about everything is that even more and more people are just having, even if it's one vegan meal or plant-based meal a day. Yeah. And that's happening more and more and more.
Yes.
And you're going to see that increase into maybe once a day or twice a day. And what we'll see is less and less people eating meat, just like happened with cigarettes, because, processed meats are a grade 1 carcinogen.
Yes, class 1. And yes, that's right.
And red meats are
class 2A, I think.
Class 2A carcinogen, which class 1 is exactly the same as cigarettes. It's just totally linked to cancer. Scientifically proven, if you eat these processed meats like bacon and you're going to get cancer. There's a high percentage of chance you're going to get cancer, just like you're going to get cancer if you smoke a cigarette. Yeah.
And isn't that amazing when you bring that aspect up, that, people know that. I've spoken to a lot of, quite a few meat eaters that are aware of that, and it hasn't stopped them. No. And that's why when I started thinking about it, I thought, okay, there's because people said to me, how is that possible? How could you know about that and you wouldn't stop it immediately? And I thought the only logical explanation is addiction. It's the only logic, because it's not that they don't stop it immediately, it's they can't stop it immediately, because an addict can't stop. No, addictions are not logical. They can't.
They need help. And the more the community, the more people start eating this way, more and more people will drop away. And that volume is increasing. And that's a wonderful thing to see, more compassion and love in the world.
Oh, definitely.
And compared to back in the 80s to what it is now, it's like, oh my God, not only is it more social and easier to get the food, it's super good. Now, listen, I want to ask you something else about the vegan hour. How
Vegan
did that
hour.
come about?
Actually, vegan hour. I'm glad you asked that question, Adam. That's a good question. Vegan hour again is presented by the power of social media. um, Vegan hour. This year is my 4th year of the vegan hour. So, just to pick up on what you said at the beginning of the show, where you said it was weekly, we did start weekly in 2016 was the first year. So that was weekly, and 2017 was weekly. Last year, 2018, I went fortnightly, and this year is fortnightly as well. We're starting up in 2 weeks, a week and a half's time again. It came about as soon as Facebook introduced live stream. I was waiting for live stream to come on to Facebook because my friend had it on his Apple iPhone, and I was waiting for it to come on to Android. It came on to Android, and coincidentally, I was at an Animal Justice Party fundraiser with one of the candidates. And I checked my phone, and I saw that I suddenly had this Facebook Live. First time. It was on my phone, and I just happened to be at this event. And I said to him, mate, because we were talking about it and I didn't have it. I said, I don't have it. And I checked my phone and suddenly it's there. I said, mate, I've got Facebook Live. Hey, can I interview you? I said, can we do a 5-minute interview or something? He said, sure. So somewhere on my Facebook page in the dim dark past is me interviewing Paul Bevan at this Animal Justice Party fundraiser at the beginning of 2016, I think it was. So that was like a 5-minute thing, and I thought this is really cool. So that I think that night or the next night, I actually did it from where I'm filming from now. I think I set up the phone on a stand. That's right, because we couldn't do it from the computer directly then, and I did it. The first episode of what became the Vegan Hour. And the first episode was called Ask Harry. It wasn't called the Vegan Hour. It was called Ask Harry. So I did this episode, went to work the next day, and one of my meat-eating friends, and this is where the story gets interesting, one of my meat-eating friends, he said, I watched that last night. That was really great. He said, I've got some ideas for you. I said, really? He said, I've got a name for it. He said, you should call it the Vegan Hour. So I didn't even come up with a name. One of my meat-eating friends came up with a name. He said, you should call it the Vegan. I'm like, okay. I didn't like it at first. I thought about it. And anyway, so that was the idea. So that was the...
So what do you do in this Vegan Hour? Tell us. What do you do in this Vegan Hour now? Is it just you talking or...
No. So the Vegan Hour has now, since early 2016, has featured such a wide range of guests. From episode 2 onwards, we featured different guests. The first guest was a vegan musician friend of mine, actually. But and you've been a guest, of course. You were a guest on the end of October last year. I've had the absolute pleasure to be. The pleasure is mine because I get inspired and motivated to talk to vegan celebrities, vegan chefs, vegan business owners, vegan athletes, vegan activists, vegan mums, vegan children, just all different categories, and just to be so inspired. Some of these people, and you will probably know a lot of them, some of these people by the end of an episode, I just think, wow, I almost want to pay them to be, to have come on the show because of what I've gained from it. And I walk away from it with a big smile on my face, feeling empowered to have heard their journey, to have seen, to have learnt how to approach people by the way they're doing things, like I gained from that, and to be able to share it. And because it's a live stream, people come in real time. They ask questions in real time. Like having James Aspey on is guaranteed to get so much coverage. He'll get marriage proposals every minute. When I have him on, and that's actually what's happened. But really, so the Vegan Hour has become a vehicle or a tool to allow an expression of vegan awareness, and it's another way of doing it. It's another way of, I guess, like activism, Yeah. So, I had Trish Hayward from Sydney on as one of my guests last year. She has been vegan her entire life of 61 years from birth. So when, I thought 39 years was a long time. She's 61 years vegan. She's got 4 vegan kids as well from birth. From birth, she just never wanted animal products from birth, and she's not the only one. I've come across a few others that were like that refused animal products from birth, didn't even know they were vegan, and their parents just allowed them to not eat animal products from when they were born, and just that sort of thing. I was like, that is amazing, and like some Mr. Universe, Mr. Natural Universe, Billy Simmons. He's such a quietly spoken force. That by the time I finished the episode with him, I think 2 years ago, I was just blown away. I was like, man, this guy is just, the compassion is just oozing out of this guy. He's so intelligent and so powerful. And he was Mr. Natural Universe in 2009 or something. So you get people like this. I love it. I'm so fortunate to be able to have their presence, and to share it.
Wow, man, I'm so excited for you. Like, it's, to have come from a space where you naturally went that way out of healing your acne.
Yep.
And as a result of that, having a lonely sort of early journey, because not many people or young friends were eating that way. But it allowed you to discover the world and higher realms and nature, and connect with
the things that matter.
The things that matter.
Yeah.
And now you've got this thriving community, and you're supporting a community. You're bringing people together. You've got this hour show where you get to interview like-minded people that have got great messages to share. Harry, it's been a cool journey for you, man.
It's amazing. I never could have predicted it would end up like this. And I'm just working with the things that work well for me. I'm just working with the tools that work well for me, in the same way that James Aspey's working with the things that work for him. Gary Yourofsky was fantastic with the speeches that he did. You just look at all these different people and you see them in their element, in what works for them. So, and I'm working in the element that works for me. So if I can do a little bit to create awareness, and the feedback I get makes it all worthwhile, because people, give the feedback of how it has inspired them to step up and either become vegan or to do more in their vegan journey. So it means, okay, it's having an effect, which is fantastic.
So there's nothing better than that feeling of contribution, is there?
The service, that's where we find our happiness, is in actual service to others, not self-service, because that's selfishness doesn't work. So outward service is where our happiness is found.
Yeah, definitely, man. You seem happy, man.
Thank you. Well, it's the natural vegan high.
Yeah, totally. Well, Harry, thanks for joining us, mate. And
it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I look forward to coming up and coming to one of those vegan life restaurant things with you.
I'm so glad you went to Goodness Gracias, because you got to see one of our most recent places open here, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to be interviewed by you, Adam. It's fantastic. I love it. It's completing the cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers, brother. Thank you so much.
As I like to say, live vegan and save lives.
I can't do the damn thing.
Live vegan live vegan and save lives. Thank you very much, Adam.
Cheers. Pleasure, buddy.
Okay. See ya.